It's labeled chat, and you can use that feature for typing greetings and for joys and concerns during the service. The First Unitarian Universalist Church of Indiana, PA is a member congregation of the Unitarian Universalist Association. We are a network of self-governing congregations united in a web of mutuality that creates our denomination. We require neither creed nor doctrine, but instead teach that all individuals have both the right and the responsibility to discern and follow their own paths. We come together to support and assist each other on our personal journeys and to build our beloved community together. If you're on Zoom, please stay after the service. We will open up the microphone for coffee hour following the service so that people can check in about how they're feeling and what's on their minds. And now, I invite you to take a breath and settle yourself into a spirit of worship.
Our call to worship today is from Jennifer McLaughlin. As the first hint of green begins to peek through the barren ground, as that little sprig grows into a healthy stem, as that stem grows into a stalk and forms a bud, as that bud slowly opens with each new day to form a yellow daffodil. Let us be like that first hint of green, renewed by the warmth of the sun's rays, and ready to emerge with a new energy, ready to face the day. So come, let us worship together. And our first hymn together will be Sing and Rejoice. It is shared with us by Matt and Jane Baumer. And it's a round, so please feel welcome to sing first or second part, whichever feels good to you. Do keep yourself muted while you do so, though, because if you are not muted, we will all be on different timing, and it will sort of be like the Hogwarts house when everybody sings to their favorite tune and it's not the same one.
Sing and rejoice, sing and rejoice. Let all things living now sing and rejoice.
Sing and rejoice,
Sing and rejoice, sing and rejoice. Let all things living now sing and rejoice. Sing and rejoice, sing and rejoice. Let all things living now sing and rejoice. Sing and rejoice, sing and rejoice. Let all things living now sing and rejoice.
All right, I hope that got us warmed up. Our chalice lighting today is called Rising from Within. I'll put the words on the screen and you're welcome to speak them aloud along, to light a chalice or a candle if you happen to have one. And you can say in the chat bar by typing where you are lighting your chalice from. Please join with me in our chalice lighting words. We'll speak them in unison. Our chalice flame rises like new life, coming forth from cold, dead ground. Today, may we notice all that renews, all that comes into being again and again, rising from nothing to become once more. If you have a chalice that you are lighting, or that you're lighting in spirit with us from your home, please go ahead and type in the chat bar now. Let us know where the chalice is lit. The chalice is lit here in Pastor Elizabeth's home on Church Street in Indiana, Pennsylvania. Where are you lighting the chalice? There are a lot of chalices being lit on Church Street, I suspect. We have several folks who live just along this route. It's wonderful to see how many of you are tuning in from other places as well. We now come to our time for all ages, which Penny Vick will be sharing with us a bit of a meditation on springtime and the gardens that we grow together.
Good morning, happy Easter. Today I'm going to be talking about flowers and blooming and the journey they go on as they bloom. So many of you or your families may have planted bulbs in the fall. And as spring has sprung around us, we've been able to see the beauty in those come about on our streets and in our backyards. So this made me think about the last couple of weeks. Well, it's been 4 weeks now that we've had to isolate ourselves. So when we were all asked to stay in our homes, and like the bulb that was newly planted in the ground in the fall, it took a while for us to adjust and to grow and to figure out our new surroundings. And then we each began our own path to growing and adjusting into being with family, being isolated from friends, not going to school, and finding our new routine. We slowly began to bloom in this new place, learning to spend more time with family or spend more time with ourselves. Maybe we learned something new, spent time creating, reading more, learning to be grateful. Some of us are still at that bulb stage, just starting to sprout up, but some of us have begun to bloom and are able to not focus just on ourselves like we did in the beginning, finding a safe space and the comfort in our environment, in our situations. We have begun to help others through beautiful acts of kindness, giving, being patient. Like the flowers blooming this spring, those of us who have been able to bloom are now able to give and help others to grow and to bloom in their journey. No matter where you are in your stage of growth in this new journey we're all taking, know that you're part of a community, a garden. Our UU community is a garden where we all are able to support each other and help each other along their journey and in their growth, not only spiritually, but mentally, and emotionally we are here for each other. I hope today is a lovely day for each of you where you can touch base with friends and family, even if it's virtually. And I'm glad that you're all here this morning.
Thank you, Penny. And as we traditionally do, this is a moment after our Time for All Ages when we like to share with one another our blessings for the day. So if you would like to take a moment to type a short greeting or blessing into our chat, something like, peace be with you, namaste, bright blessings, Shabbat Shalom, Salam Alaikum, or blessed be, you can do so at this time. And today we have two sets of words for our centering. Our first are words from the Bible, from the Gospel of Mark, when after the Jewish Sabbath had concluded, the women came to find Jesus's body, to anoint it and prepare it for burial.
When the Sabbath was over, Mary Magdalene and Mary, the mother of James, and Salome bought spices so that they might go and anoint him. And very early on the first day of the week, when the sun had risen, they went to the tomb. They had been saying to one another, "Who will roll away the stone for us from the entrance to the tomb?" When they looked up, they saw that the stone, which was very large, had already been rolled back. As they entered the tomb, they saw a young man dressed in a white robe sitting on the right side, and they were alarmed.
But he said to them, "Do not be alarmed. You are looking for Jesus of Nazareth, who was crucified. He has been raised. He is not here. Look, there is the place they laid him. But go, tell his disciples and Peter that he is going ahead of you to Galilee. There you will see him, just as he told you." So they went out and fled from the tomb, for terror and amazement had seized them. And they said nothing to anyone, for they were afraid.
And so it was. They were afraid and said nothing. Our second set of centering words are a bit different, a piece of poetry by Sapphire Rose. It's read by Liz Cook.
She let go. Without a thought or a word, she let go. She let go of the fear. She let go of the judgments. She let go of the confluence of opinions swarming around her head. She let go of the committee of indecision within her. She let go of all the right reasons. Wholly and completely, without hesitation or worry, she just let go. She didn't ask anyone for their advice. She didn't read a book on how to let go. She didn't research the scriptures. She just let go. She let go of all the memories that held her back. She let go of all the anxiety that kept her from moving forward. She let go of the planning and all of the calculations about how to do it just right. She didn't promise to let go. She didn't journal about it. She didn't write the projected date in her day timer. She made no public announcement and put no ad in the newspaper. She didn't check the weather report or read her daily horoscope. She just let go. She didn't analyze whether she should let go. And she didn't call her friends to discuss the matter. She didn't do a 5-step treatment. She didn't call the prayer line. She didn't utter one word. She just let go. There was no one around when it happened. There was no applause or congratulations. No one thanked her or praised her. No one noticed a thing. Like a leaf falling from a tree, she just let go. There was no effort. There was no struggle. It wasn't good and it wasn't bad. It was what it was, and it was just that. And in the space of letting go, she let it all be. A small smile came over her face. A light breeze blew through her. And the sun and the moon shone forevermore.
And so it was, letting go. Today, we have a theme of liberation. We have Easter time, a time of resurrection and joy. And yet, I'm not sure that the world looks like that for all of us. So I'd like to take a moment to talk about our Unitarian and Universalist context and roots for Easter time, and to talk about what we're doing, therefore, with this service. Because in the Unitarian tradition, we come from people who celebrated Easter, for whom the resurrection of Jesus was very important. But the Unitarians over time became more and more deist, more and more focused on the miracles in nature, in all of the ways that the natural world around us shows us that it is reborn again and again each springtime. They focused on the humanity that is found in the story of Jesus, more so than the divinity, the resurrection piece. They focused on the teachings, what could be learned from Jesus's life and from the stories he told. And in that tradition, we tell the stories, the story of the Easter holiday as it is with meaning for us, and the story of the springtime that is growing and changing right outside your doors and windows, even now, even as the world is strange and different. In the Universalist tradition, the story of Jesus again is not about the death, but about the rising, the ever-present gift of love, the sharing, the strength of the community. It becomes a story of unbounded blessing and reassurance. That story, again, fits into who we are as Unitarian Universalists today. The ways that we come together, the ways that we share in community with one another and build a beloved community by the ways that we act together. And so in the current Unitarian Universalist tradition, there's no right way to celebrate Easter, though I highly encourage eating chocolate. But it is one of the major holidays of our heritage. And so today we'll be uplifting the story of Easter and the ways that it makes meaning in our own lives. And now, as we often do in our congregation in Indiana, I'm going to invite you to join me in reciting our Unitarian Universalist principles. There's a simple version that I'll put up on the screen. If you remember the full version, you're very welcome to say all of the words. You can find that one on the UUA's website, or it might be in your memory. And so, invite you to speak with me. We, the member congregations of the Unitarian Universalist Association of Congregations, covenant to affirm and promote, honoring the inherent worth and dignity of every person, practicing justice, equity, and compassion in human relations,
Ed, put your thing on mute.
one another, and encouraging us to spiritual growth, supporting the freedom to search for what is true and right in life, ensuring that all have a vote about matters that concern them, working for a peaceful, fair, and free world, and caring for planet Earth, the home that we share with all living things. And we now come to a time for our joys and concerns. If there are any joys, any sorrows that you are carrying in your heart that might be shared with this community, you can type them into the chat stream. If there's anything that feels too tender for a crowd, you might write something more general, and you could let me know via private chat or a personal phone call if you wish to share details in pastoral confidence. If you're on a phone or you can't get into the chat for any reason, send your joys and sorrows to me by email. They'll be included in next week's pastoral prayer. Our sharing of joys and sorrows are one of many ways that we find one another, hold on to each other, and bind the fabric of our community together. So we invite you to hold one another in care and gentleness here.
Have you ever felt like nobody was there?
Have you ever felt forgotten in the middle of nowhere?
Have you ever felt like you could disappear?
Like you could fall, no one would hear.
Well, let that lonely feeling wash away.
Maybe there's a reason to believe you'll be okay. 'Cause when you don't feel strong enough to stand,
You can reach out your hand.
And oh, someone will come running, and I know they'll take you home. Even when the dark comes crashing through,
When you need a friend to carry you,
and when you're broken on the ground, you will be found. So let the sun come streaming in,
you'll reach up and you'll rise again.
lift your head and look
around.
You will be found. You will be found. You will be found. You will be found.
You will be found.
There's a place where we don't have to feel unknown. Every time that you call out, you're a little less alone. If you only say the word, from across the silence, your voice is heard. Oh, someone will come running. Oh, to take you home. Someone will come running to take you home. Even when the darkness crashing through, when you need a friend to carry you, when you're holding on the ground, you will be found. So let the sun come streaming in, so reach up and we'll rise again. If you only look around, you will be found. You will be found. You will be out of the shadows, morning is breaking, and all is new, all is new. Filling up the empty, suddenly I see that all is new, all is new. You are not alone. 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 You are not
Even when the dark comes crashing through.
When you need someone to carry you, when you're broken on the ground,
You will be found. So reach up and rise again. If you only look around, you will be found. You will be found. You will be found. You will be found.
You will be found.
And so it is. We always will be here for one another. So let us join our hearts and our minds together in the spirit of prayer. Spirit of life and of love, who we call by so many names. We gather together to share in community the milestones of our living, to make meaning of our lives together. Today we hold in our hearts so much that is hard. We especially want to lift up Juanita and Judith's family. They ask for continued prayers and white light for their nephew Donald. His first series of radiation and chemotherapy has not shrunk his brain tumor, so he will be starting a new series this week. And please keep in mind their nephew-in-law, Brinks, as well, who has been diagnosed with cancer. We hold all those who are having difficulty, who are having health troubles, whose mental and emotional state may be burdened by this current state of events, by being in close quarters or far from those who they love. Please keep one another in your hearts, even though we cannot reach out and give a hug. I hope that we will give a phone call, send a message. We pray also for the world, with the lamentation, the knowledge that food is being dumped and wasted in fields. We lament the injustice of systems because we see in each and every one of our communities, there are so many people hungry. There are children no longer fed who were fed in schools. And we pray that one of these days, people will find that profit is no motive for being a good person. For the further tragedy in the midst of hardship, of hunger, and lack of caring enough to go beyond what is needed by capitalism and by stock markets. We lament. And yet that is not all that there is. Because we also hold space for hope. We know here in our local communities that our farmers are reaching out, giving or sharing food, even at cost. We know that organizations all around us are working to make sure that those children and those families do get fed. We know that individuals are more moral than corporations and are working to make sure that their neighbors are safe and well. So for all those who are working to share food, to make sure that the replacements for Meals on Wheels get out on time to our elders, who are making face masks, for those who are a blessing in the world and sharing, we give thanks. And we give thanks for all outdoors that reminds us that the world is still turning, that springtime is still coming, happening outdoors, with the exception of a few flurries of snow. We give thanks that we are safe and well. We give thanks also that so many people are able to find community online, electronically, in ways that would not have been possible 5 or 10 years ago if this had happened. So for all that is still possible in this world, we lift up our gratitude for all the blessings and the beauty of the earth. So in times of fragile hearts and of tender sorrows, may we find comfort and strength. May our hearts be healed of their difficulties, and may we find peace. Amen, and blessed be. So our homily today is in two parts. The first is about the biblical Easter. This year is not a normal Easter season. You may have noticed that times are a little more like Passover with the plagues and all things being different. The need to buy food for a long period huddled in our homes. But you'll notice from the Gospel of Mark that in the Bible, the resurrection was also not a joyous celebration, at least not initially. It was fearful, confusing, paralyzing. And we are more in that Easter space, many of us this year. That's okay. Great change is paralyzing. Taking the space to be still, taking the space to breathe, to let go of what was, what were our rhythms, our expectations. It takes time, and it is necessary before we move into new ways of being. But the promise of the Easter story each year is the promise of springtime, of seeds growing under the earth, of frozen ground giving way to new life, year after year. The promise that even if you cannot determine a timeline, even if you must let go and let it happen at its own pace, your creativity is still there. Your gifts and abilities are waiting to blossom. And so in this year, the Easter season reminds me of the times when I have felt paralyzed. Before I went to seminary, I was living in Asheville, North Carolina, and I had some serious health problems that meant that I wasn't able to hold down a job. I'd lost housing, and I didn't have any idea what to do next. Thing after thing had gone wrong. I couldn't even tell you from week to week where I was going to be sleeping. It was a hard time. And for a lot of people, that would have been a strange time to choose to go to seminary, to begin graduate school, to start a new journey. I didn't do it immediately. It took time to heal. It took time for things to unfold, to find stable housing again. But the seeds were growing under the earth, much as they must have been from the moment it was revealed that Jesus's body was not in the tomb. So for those women who had seen Jesus be absent from the grave, there was worry, yes. There was fear. There was unknowing. And there was hardship. All of Jesus's followers were being persecuted at that time. Yet, at the same time, the stories that he had told, the vision of a new world, a world in which less would be about profit and more about love, those seeds grew. And just as for me, a new hope was born. So the Easter season, as a time of resurrection, is not simply about Jesus standing up and bodily being resurrected. In fact, half of the Gospels don't have that story in them. But the promise of possibility, that in the unknowing, there's a spark of the creative. It meant that for me, going to seminary became possible because so much was uncertain. With no clear path forward, I had to envision a new one. And for you, I wonder what this time might bring. While you're encased and entombed, not in stone, but in your homes, what is stirring? What is in bud? What uncertainty might lead, in fact, to growth, to deeper love, to greater sharing in community? And with that, we'll leave the Bible story for just a moment for our weekly offering. I know for some of you, the closers at the church mean that you haven't been able to get a check to us, even though you might want to. For some of you, I don't know how many people may be on furlough from work or otherwise not currently able to pay your pledge. I just want to let you know that that is something that's okay. It happens. We want to be here as a church and to care for you if you are having financial difficulty. So I encourage you to reach out and let us know if for some reason there is an interruption in your ability to pay your pledge. It's not an issue that I want you to think about as an issue for our church finances, but a pastoral issue, something we hope to help you with. So with all of that said, you can still pay your pledge via check. You can mail it to the office or stop by and drop it in our mailbox. And we also have a PayPal set up so that you can donate online to sustain the work of this church. We've been supporting our community during these uncertain times, and our plate this month is shared with the Care Center of Indiana, which is continuing to do its critical work during this time. So I will put up on the screen our donations address right here. And as you can see, office at firstuu-indianapa.org will get you to our PayPal. And that is another way to make donations. We're currently looking into some other ways to do that electronically with mobile giving, and we'll let you know as soon as there are more options for you.
Blessed be the gifts, blessed be the gifts, the ones we give and those that you reveal. Help us use our gifts, our very
The second portion of our homily is our theme, liberation. In the springtime, we find ourselves needing to come free of the husk. Seeds do this when they break open in order to allow the new stems, the new growth to come forth. And what we find with people is it's a little less of an explosion of energy, but there is that moment in liberation where you need to break free, to burst open the expectations of what has been if you wish to become something else. And I found the poem that Liz Cook read, She Let Go, very meaningful and a very thoughtful exploration of this. All the ways that we tend to check ourselves, to keep ourselves from truly letting go or freeing ourselves of expectation. We check in with friends. We check in with books. We check in with our expectations. We check to see if there will be approval. We hold ourselves back with dates and calendars. And suddenly we are in a liminal space, a threshold for our entire society where none of that looks the same. And so while this could be, again, that moment of paralysis, maybe it's also a moment of letting go. What are the patterns that fill your days or your life in such ways that there is no space to pivot, to do something different? What are the things that you assume to be true about yourself or others that make it so that you act in certain ways, perhaps not the ways that you have always hoped for? And that means as individuals, but also as communities. Remember that none of the people who went to find Jesus's body, none of them went alone. Going forth, especially going forth into a place where there may be danger or uncertainty, should be a community effort. We grow and thrive when we are together. And so let this also be a time for breaking free of individualism and reaching out in trust, reaching out in love, using the story of Easter as a reminder that there is enough love in the world, enough love to care for those who are in need, enough love to go and find the body of a fallen comrade, even in the midst of danger, because that is truly what is happening in the Gospel of Mark. The insistence that human dignity is important, that all people matter, that each and every one of us is deserving of care, even up to and after our death. That is what the women are already enacting in love when they arrive at the tomb. There is hope already there for a gathered community that will do differently, that will do more than what is expected because they will do what is loving and caring. And so they are able to see the continuation of the story, of the myth that will become the basis for all of Christianity to grow for 2,000 years beyond that moment of death. Because in some ways, it doesn't actually matter whether Jesus himself got up and walked around, because the stories did, the teachings did, the myth that could have died in that political moment didn't. Instead, it grew like a seed that has been buried, that comes up again and again, growing and thriving in spite of all. So here we are, and it is Easter time, and the world is growing and changing and thriving, and the things that are not yet are already in your heart and your soul, ready to come into this world if you believe in them, if you're willing to bring forth those changes. And so may this be the blessing for your day. When you roll away the stone, that something, someone is there to tell you there's nothing there. It's already free walking in the world. Whatever it is that you have locked away in the secret places of your heart, may it not be locked away, but free in the world this day. Our closing hymn is by Christopher Lamb from the Foothills Unitarian Church in Fort Collins, Colorado.
Roll away the stone and find it's empty. We are coming home when mind is set free. Roll away the stone and find it's empty. We are coming home when mind is set free. Every time I feel I'm hanging on like an anchor at the bottom of a murky pond, it comes to me there's a clear sweet stream runs through the heart of everything, and I let it go. I let it flow. Roll away the stone, find it's empty. We are coming home when mind is set free. Roll away the stone, find it's empty. We are coming home when mind is set free. Let it go. Let it flow. Let it go. Let it flow.
And Josiah will help us to extinguish our chalice flame.
We extinguish our chalice flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.
So may it be. May we roll away the stones that enclose us, entomb us, and find that we are still ourselves, pulled together in community, filled with love, open to the creative process. For all life is a hopeful place. There is always room for change. And when we are free of expectation, we can find only possibility and new growth. May it be so. May you find the things that you may grow into, even if that thing is growing into the spaciousness of not being so busy, learning to relax, learning to stretch, learning to become more fully and gently yourselves. Blessed be. And if you'd like to stay and join us for coffee hour, we'll open up this room and we'll do some breakout groups so that people can converse in small groups. So I know many of you let me know that you're coming from the Ligonier Valley Fellowship at the beginning. If you wouldn't mind just in the chat once again, just saying Ligonier Valley or UUFLV, if that's you, I'll make sure that you end up in a breakout room or two of your very own. Thank you all so much for joining us for this service.